Mighty Ape is Australia's entertainment and pop culture superstore with everything from movies, music, games, toys, books, hobbies and more. Mighty Ape is your one-stop shop for the things that matter most. They constantly have hot deals and exclusive promos. And if you visit their website on the click-through banner on fakechef.net's homepage, then your purchase will help support Good Movie Monday. Mighty Ape, Australia's entertainment and pop culture superstore.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning!
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
You mean to wish me a good morning? What do you mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not?
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
That was pretty good.
Oh, shit, man. How often do you reckon people would try that Crypt Keeper laugh to John Cassier's face?
I reckon he must cop it all the time. That's what you do when you line up for an autograph with someone. And then you get there and you know, to show them how much of a fan you are, you do a really shit impression of them to their face.
Well, you can rest easy knowing that I did not do that. There's a good chance he's going to hear what we're doing today, and that's not good. So for the past few weeks on the show, Ben, we've been easing ourselves into Halloween. It's not a holiday that's celebrated much in Australia like it is in North America, or Europe for that matter, but its popularity is growing, and perhaps our generation, I reckon, was the first to kind of embrace it a little bit. Did you celebrate it as a kid?
No, I was always super disappointed that we didn't do trick-or-treating or anything like that. Was like totally a non-event when I was like, I don't remember anyone doing it, and I always wanted to. Like, I used to love watching the Garfield Halloween special, and you know, watching. Oh, why can't we go to trick-or-treating or E.T. or any of that sort of stuff? Like, we never got to do any of it.
We grew up with it on our screen,
Yeah.
so we knew about it, but we didn't celebrate it. But I feel like we were the first generation to actually go out there in costumes, even though there was only maybe 2 or 3 groups of kids on the street or in the neighbourhood.
Yeah.
And the neighbours are like, "What the fuck do you?"
Well, you still get that. You still, even now, you still get parents going, "Oh, we're not doing that. That's an American thing.
No,
This
it's
is
not.
this is Australia, mate."
It's actually European.
But yeah,
Well, it's steeped in both Halloweens in Europe and America have different kind of origins, so we are getting behind it slowly but surely. But here on the show, we're getting behind it.
100%.
And so maybe I should get the formalities out of the way before we really get into it. This is Good Movie Monday. Welcome. We are the weekly podcast presented by fakeshemp.net, home of the nerdy cinematic ramblings. My name is Glenn Cochran, and I intend to bomb you with bad jokes today. And the other guy who will be here to bear the brunt of it, it's Ben Helwig, human joke cushion. Hey, mate, how are you?
I'm good. A little sore.
Did you know that COVID-19 is more prevalent and contagious in graveyards?
No, I didn't know that.
It's because of all the coughing.
Sorry, I think my dad just entered the room.
Hey, it's great to be back at the desk, man.
It really is.
Lockdown is over and we're back in person, and this is exciting, but it's a bit weird, a bit uncomfortable. With.
I haven't been this close to another person in 3 months.
I have, but they're family.
Yeah. They don't count.
No, I haven't been this close with anybody.
We're spooning right now for the people who can't see us.
We should video podcast that one. Wouldn't that be funny?
We just do it. We've both got lapel mics on and we spoon for the show.
So, Halloween, a few weeks ago, we did a show about kid-friendly movies, and then we did a show about killer toy movies. And now Halloween has finally arrived, and we have quite possibly the greatest Halloween guest I can possibly hope for, and we're going to explore some anthology horror movies in the meantime. So, I'm looking forward to this, Ben. Hope you are too. Hope everybody listening is. As I mentioned in the intro, our guest is John Kassir, the Crypt Keeper himself, from what I would say is arguably the greatest anthology television show of all time. I don't know if you would agree.
No, 100. Well, I mean, there's when you're comparing it to things like Twilight Zone and stuff like that, but this is definitely the most fun.
Yes, there you go. That's what we'll put it down to. The most fun. And this show, in turn, gave us a kids' animated series. It gave us a kids' TV game show. And then it spawned 3 feature films.
Mm.
Like 2 of them stone cold classics, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit. I should say that out of respect for John, I'm going to refrain from any horror-related puns. I got the bad jokes, but I'm gonna hold off on the puns.
Hold on the puns.
Yes. I mean, you don't tempt brushstrokes in front of Picasso, and you don't chuck doughies in front of Nick Giannopoulos. Wogboy 3's coming out, mate. I spoke about that with Chloe the other day.
Jesus, I can't wait. I can't wait. And then just before it comes out, going back through the Nick Giannopoulos filmography, just so I can prepare myself from all those Wog jokes from 1982. Which I think maybe have been the last time I heard someone other than Nick Giannopoulos use the word Wog.
Was it Mary Custis?
Or Mary Custis, yeah. In an episode of Skirts.
We have a rad show for everybody today, and to help us get into the Halloween spirit, I just fucked up. We've got the gang back together. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from Jarrett Garn with all you need to know about what's been released onto physical media this week. Guillermo Troncoso will have all the movie news directly from Screen Realm. Chloe Ritchie from Movie Night with the Ritchie Girls podcast will be reacting to a Halloween favourite that she's watched for the first time. Adam Ross from Triple M will be giving you his own personal Halloween recommendation. And our friends from Kentucky, Joe, Chad and James from the Bonehead Weekly podcast will throw an assortment of suggestions your way also. It's going to be heaps of fun, so stay right where you are as we kick things off.
I tell you, ladies and germs, that ghoul friend of mine makes me so crazy. She told me she thought she'd look good in something long and flowing. So I threw her in the Mississippi.
Hey, Ben, what did the vampire say to the teacher?
I don't know, Glenn. What did the vampire say to the teacher?
See you next period.
Jesus. It's too early in the morning for menstruation jokes.
So real quick before we go any further, Monster Fest.
Yes.
Some people listening might not know that you actually do work for Monster Pictures and Monster Fest. So that kind of adds a bit of context to why we talk about it all the time. The program's been revealed last week.
Yes, that's right. Last Thursday, we announced the full slab, bar one secret film.
Was that a horror pun? Slab.
No.
No?
I thought we agreed no puns.
I know, but I've already fucked up. So tickets are on sale now?
They certainly are. I think we've already sold out. Sold out of a film. That being said, at the moment, we're operating under kind of strict COVID guidelines about capacity. Now, that will change the closer we get to the December 2nd opening night date.
So, therefore, tickets may drip feed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Will be increasing as I think at the moment, because I think it starts off with like 25% capacity, and then once we get to the 80% mark, it'll go up to 50 or whatever, or 75 or whatever the new guidelines suggest. It's just we're playing it cautious. We don't want to oversell too soon.
It's a great lineup, and I'm excited. Everybody should check out the website and look at the program, buy some tickets. But I'm particularly excited about the documentary about the tunnel. I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, look, believe it or not, they are still furiously shooting interviews for that. It's going to be down to the line with that one, but I can't wait.
I love the tunnel. I think that's an incredible. I've got the Blu-ray, and it's something that it's a prized possession. I just absolutely adore that film, and that was one of those first real crowdfunding kind of films where everybody got a slice of the pie kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Monster Fest, check it out. But let's talk about Tales from the Crypt movies for a moment before we lead into the anthology chat. The first movie that spun from the TV series was Demon Knight, and I think we both agree that's a bit of a rock and roll cult classic.
It's a classic. I haven't actually watched it in quite a while, but I remember absolutely loving it when I first watched it.
It caught me off guard completely when it came out because it was really original and chaotic.
Yeah.
My first memory of this one, though, before I even saw it, was David and Margaret reviewing it on the movie show on SBS. And for them to both say, to sort of an extent that it is a rock and roll movie and this is, 4.5 stars. I'm like, hang on, David, Margaret, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, 4.5 stars? They adored it.
The thing was, when I first watched it, I wasn't too familiar with the whole Tales of the Crypt thing. Like, I knew the EC comics.
Yeah.
But I didn't know really about the TV series or anything. So I was like, who the fuck is this Crypt Keeper guy? And and I just like for me it was just like, oh, it's a Jada Pinkett movie because I really like Low Down Dirty Shame and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'll watch this, and Billy Zane, and and it was Ned from Ned and Stacey was in it, or
That's right.
was it? Yeah, Ned and Stacey. That's right. Yeah, I think at the time that was the
Hayden,
first
was
one.
it Christian Hayden Thompson or
Uh,
I can't remember his name. The guy from Sideways.
Thomas Hayden Church.
That's it.
Something
Yeah,
think,
I
is it?
reckon that's
yeah.
it. Yes.
Yeah, the guy from now he's the guy from Sideways,
he wasn't
which
then.
he wasn't then. He was the guy from Ned and Stacey.
Yes, and Charles Fleischer, one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Fleischer's Universe, look it up, everybody. It's fantastic. But there's a bit of a history between Demon Knight. So before it became a Tales from the Crypt movie, Tom Holland had originally planned to direct it because it was a script that had been going around town. It was going to be his follow-up to Child's Play. And something went wrong there and he moved on to other work. But then Mary Lambert was going to pick it up. And unfortunately, Pet Sematary 2 tanked, and therefore the studio lost faith in her ability to deliver this. And finally, Charles Band had his mitts on it, and it was going to be a full moon picture, which totally makes sense.
Yeah,
Wouldn't have been as good. Would have been fun, though.
I think there would have been more nudity in it. I mean, considering it's pretty freaky, like there's like all that stuff. I think is it Thomas Hayden Church? He's got like electrodes attached to his nipples and stuff.
That's
like there's a lot of,
That's right.
is it Brenda Back from Hot Shots Part 2?
Well, it's essentially it's pretty much a brothel. Like it's a motel that looks more like a brothel.
Yeah, it's like it's the motel from Vacancy.
Yeah, totally. I would love to have seen Charles Band do a knockoff. Like,
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't actually. When it
Same.
proved to be a success, when it was a hit, why wouldn't he have done a couple of? Yeah.
And then, of course, their second film was Bordello of Blood, which, did not live up to the expectations, and it did bomb pretty hard. But I reckon that's a shame. I reckon that's a pretty cool movie.
Well, I think it was like I was expecting a lot because I used to, and like just got out of my head now, but I really liked what's his name, Miller.
Oh, Dennis Miller.
Dennis Miller.
Yeah.
I always really liked Dennis Miller. I don't know if he worked out too well in that kind of leading man capacity because he's much better. I think he's much better as the best friend, like dishing out the sarcastic
Yes.
comments,
Yep.
rather than being the straight man lead.
Yep.
Yeah, and Eric Erlaniak, like it was during that period of time, like I would have watched her like mow the lawn. It would have been this, she could do no wrong.
And of course, it was written by the two Bobs, Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis, who were like Hollywood dynamite in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that's right.
So like, it had all the hallmarks of like, legendary Hollywood.
And it's a vampire brothel.
Yeah.
Like the setting is great.
The title is
Everything
great.
is great. Bordello of Blood. It had a great cast. It had everything going for it, and it just didn't. It's not even that it didn't deliver. It just wasn't as good as from all of that stuff you thought it was going to be. So it was a disappointment. I haven't watched this one in years either. I think if I went back to it, I'd be a lot more forgiving.
Yeah.
And probably enjoy it a lot more because the expectations won't be there anymore.
Well, just like Chris Sarandon's in it too.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right.
And your favorite midget, what's his face? From the Full Moon,
From what's his name?
Faracundo, or no, the guy that was in Blood Dolls last week.
Yeah, he's in Demonic Toys versus Dollman.
I've forgotten his name, but that doesn't matter. My little story, another one of my Canadian stories for you, Ben, is I actually got to walk onto the set of Bordello of Blood. And
Really?
it was the set, and believe it or not, this
Phil
was
Fondacaro.
Phil Fondacaro. Believe it or not, it was a soundstage. The Bordello exterior where the cars park out the front. That's the set I got to walk onto.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was at what was the name? Lionsgate Studios, which became Lionsgate Entertainment. But
I
back-
didn't know that was you could go on that. I thought I'd gone on all the studio tours.
You couldn't go on a tour. Is that I was doing a little
Right.
bit of like free sort of work experience, I guess you
Right.
would say, on the X Files.
That's
a
right,
little
yeah.
bit here and there, and I was able to sort of walk into the set of this. And right next door to where the Lionsgate Studios was is also a cinema complex. And I remember watching Bordello Blood on opening night right next to where I saw it made.
Yeah, right.
So weird, so weird. But yeah.
It didn't take you out of the movie magic, having seen the set.
No, it just made me fall in love with it. Like I probably have a higher regard for it than a lot of people because of it. But if you read up on Bordello of Blood, it had such a troubled production, and union disputes and that kind of stuff sort of interfered with it and kind of sort of dragged it in through the mud. But Dennis Miller apparently was real hard work, and apparently his schedule pissed off a lot of the crew in Vancouver because everything had to be on his time, flying from LA
right.
to Vancouver. lots of rewrites and all that kind of
And
stuff.
you're like, and was he a big enough name to justify all those hassles?
I
Like,
guess
did he
it was
bring
that-
enough?
It was that fleeting moment, I think, where he was peaking. Like, he was threatening to be something big, and then
Yeah.
it's kind of, well, what happened?
Like, how much better would it have been had it been Norm Macdonald?
Oh, yes. How good would that be?
Like, that would have been amazing.
Oh, my God. The whores!
And whores. Yeah.
All that blood and the whores!
I've never seen so many horrors in my life. Lord knows I have.
Hey, look, it's a hooker. And they could have put a Saigon whore in there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they could have totally done it.
And yes, of
Note
course.
to self, your whore is a whore.
And of course, there was a third movie called Ritual. We won't go into that too much.
I haven't seen it. I've never seen it.
I did. I will be discussing that one with John in the interview coming up. So stay tuned for that. There's a lot more to come as well. Let's take a breather and hand it over to Jarrett.
Hey, this is Jarrett and welcome to PE class. Now, it's a big week for home entertainment. The shelves are awash with new and classic titles hitting home entertainment. So let's kick off with Sony, who are releasing Sam Raimi's Evil Dead on 4K UHD. It's true, it has been available overseas for some time, but the fact that it is getting a local release is still good news regardless. Then moving on to Universal, they're releasing M. Night Shyamalan's Old. Now, I like this film, felt like an extended episode of The Twilight Zone, and I'm cool with that. It's true that M. Night's had some terrible films over the years. I mean, Lady in the Water and The Happening, god awful. But this, for me, it's one of his better films. Now, the 4K UHD and Blu-ray do have special features. There's full featurettes and deleted scenes, and 4K enthusiasts, you'll be excited to hear that the 4K comes with Dolby Atmos. Then Universal have some classic titles making their way to 4K UHD this week also, including John Carpenter's The Thing, Brian De Palma's Carlito's Way, Edgar Wright's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards. Then two other new release titles that are making their way to Blu-ray and DVD are Zone 414 with Guy Pearce. You may have heard him on the show last week having a chat with Glenn. Then In the Earth, the latest feature from Ben Wheatley on Blu-ray and DVD also. Then Studio Canal are releasing their new release Gunpowder Milkshake on Blu-ray and DVD. But they've got some classics making their way to Blu-ray also, including Joe Dante's The Howling with a new 4K restoration, The Servant with a new 4K restoration. Now, Studio Canal are still moving forward with a 4K release of The Howling. They've just bumped it to November for now. Then from Madman Entertainment, they've got a net-hitting Blu-ray and DVD. And to round out this week's releases, there is a ton coming out from Imprint Films. They've got the Browning version, and this is a double pack that includes the 1951 and the 1993 version of the film. Reflection of Fear, Ned Kelly, The Assassination Bureau, a Harry Palmer collection box set, as well as a big screen British comedy box set too. So it is a big week for home entertainment this week, and personally I can't wait to go and check out the latest releases in person, in store. Anyway, that's it for me for this week. Until next time, stay physical.
Well, there's always some good stuff coming out. I'm definitely picking up Evil Dead and Howling and The Thing on 4K.
Yes, indeed. I've got The Thing. I got the UK import of
Yep.
The Thing and all the others, the Studio Canal fat box set things.
Yep.
They're pretty cool.
Howling, I think, is the
but,
one I want to get behind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got a couple of 4Ks. I do not have a 4K capable TV or a 4K player, but I'm still future proofing myself.
I was about to say it's a future proof, mate.
Yeah.
And of course, Guy Pearce's Zone 414 is hitting home entertainment. When we had Guy on the show last week chatting all about that movie. So if you did miss that chat, go back to that show and have a listen. I reckon people should go back and listen to all of our shows.
What else are you doing? I mean, yes, you can go out for drives now. What else are you doing on that drive? Listening to Good Movie Monday. It doesn't matter if it's a Sunday or a Thursday or a Wednesday. Like, we're there with you all the time.
It's a good movie every day.
That's right.
Hey,
I feel like we're on
somebody,
Sesame Street.
somebody told me that you have a skeleton in your closet, mate.
Do I?
Well, judging from the smell, I don't think the bodies have fully decomposed yet.
That is true. People have mentioned that to me before.
That was awful. Let's chat about horror anthology movies. But rather than regular format like we usually go one each, let's just sort of have a free-flowing conversation, see where it goes.
Let's do it.
I was like you. We had a conversation before we came to the mic about neither of us really thought we liked anthology movies very much. Like horror anthologies anyway. And I've always thought that, and I've struggled with them because I struggle with short films. I don't like short films. I don't know. I can watch a 4-hour film and love it, but short films that are 10 minutes or 15, I can't. I haven't got patience for.
Well, I do like shorts. What I don't like is short film programs
Yeah.
because you've got a great one and then you can have a shit one.
Yep.
And you're kind of stuck there watching stuff that you may not like. And I find like anthology films are a bit different depending on how they're done. Like the really good ones are the ones that have the solid concept right at the start.
Yep.
They're not like it's not like they've come up with the short films and then come up with the idea, the wraparound, where the wraparound is integral to the story.
Yeah, it's really funny you say this because I was reading last week in preparation for this something that Guillermo del Toro said because he adapted the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark into a movie, produced it. And that was a book of anthology stories. And someone asked him why he didn't do that as an anthology because the movie is not. It's a straight movie. And he just said, well, anthology films are only as bad as the worst story in them.
Yeah.
And they're never as good as the best.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you're saying. Having said that, there's some short film programming at Monster Fest this year. Get along.
That is true. And I've seen a lot of these. I've seen a lot of the shorts, and the shorts are great.
It's different. I've been to a lot of the short film sessions at Monster Fest, including Dick Dale's Trasharama.
Well, Trasharama is a whole different thing. Like
It is.
There's no such thing as a bad film in Trasharama.
But
They're all bad.
I feel like even
in
like
an
you
awesome
program
way.
shorts in front of features, and then you have your actual short lineups, and they're just well programmed this time. I think you guys are conscious of that factor.
Yeah.
You know, that you're only as bad as the worst one, so you make sure that the worst one's good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All right, we climbed out of that hole. Let's
Did we though? I feel like we're in Plan 9 from outer space, and I'm stuck in the hole, and you're trying to help me out. Like I'm Tor Johnson in this
let's
metaphor.
move on. I'm going to start with the original Tales from the Crypt movie, 1974.
Yes.
Now this one stars Ralph.
74? I thought it was 72.
Maybe it's 72.
I could be wrong.
It's early 70s. And it stars Ralph Richardson as the original Crypt Keeper. He's not a very good Crypt Keeper.
I really like Ralph Richardson in it. Like, but he's not like the comedy kind of Crypt Keeper kind of
He
thing.
just didn't have any menace as far as I was concerned.
He's got no real personality. I mean, it would have been better had it been the guy from the gatekeeper from the Nightmare board game. If it was him, as a you fool, you idiot. Or whatever. What was he? What was it? I can't believe you're not dead yet.
Oh, but even like, yeah, that's right. But even that turn to the audience at the end, like, is it you? It's like, oh man, that's kind of tacky. But I think this film is fabulous. Like, I really do. 3 of the films from this were adapted into the TV series.
Yeah.
So All Through the House being probably what most people cite as the best episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, which I really like. And then I didn't realize, because I had seen that before I'd seen the Tales from the Crypt movie, and I was watching that one. And as good as Joan Collins is, like I was actually surprised because usually, like Joan Collins, when you think of her now, she's almost like she's like the butt of a joke.
Yeah,
like she was like someone who was in her 60s pretending like she was in her 20s.
She was great once,
but she's like, I've seen that, the Star Trek episodes that she was in and stuff like that. And she is actually really good when she's not playing a sex kitten. Which is almost like a caricature of herself, and she is great in this. And it's actually quite hardcore. Like I don't remember this from the TV episode, but
the whole movie's hardcore. Let's just add that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
like much more hardcore than you kind of expect.
Yep.
It's almost as if this one wasn't made for kids.
Yeah.
But when she bumps off her husband, and the kid is just upstairs, like. And constantly coming out to try and catch Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's such a... Like, why is she taking that? That's a big chance that she's taking.
Oh, big chance. The 2 things that bother me about this that make the remake better, one, there's no Larry Drake. Like, let's put it out there. Like, he is incredible in the redo.
Yeah.
But also, the blood is Hammer Horror 70s style blood. So it looks like fluoro goop.
Yeah, which you kind of think, was that just the way they graded it at the time? Like, film grading then and film grading now are different, so...
But I also think it didn't matter if blood looked fake back then. I think we're more susceptible to the imagination, of it back then. And probably they had to do it so they could get away with a rating.
Yeah, that's right. That would have been their argument to the censors. Like, are you kidding? Look at that blood.
But it's still good. But story-wise, the funny thing about this particular segment is... she's found out that there is a psychotic Santa Claus on the loose, and she's just bumped off her husband. This is the perfect opportunity to get away with it. Like,
Yeah.
say the maniac did it, but instead she tries to lock him out and then cover up the crime.
That's the weirdest part about the whole thing is like she bumps off her husband, then she gets kind of attacked, or she sees the Santa Claus outside
And forgets about it.
and then she just goes back to like disposing of the body. And you're like, you wouldn't you? I mean, I know you can't call the cops, I suppose.
Leave the door open, get away with your daughter,
Yeah.
and maniac
So,
got him.
yeah, he did it.
So, therefore, it's not my favourite in the film.
Yeah.
I think my two favourites, definitely Poetic Justice with Peter Cushing is fantastic.
It's like it's weird because funnily enough, I don't like Peter Cushing in it.
I do. I really do. I really like. He's the heart of the film.
Oh, he totally is, but he's just I just don't buy him in it.
Yeah,
Like because
right.
I'm so used to Peter Cushing as being, and he's trying to put on like I don't know what he's putting on. Is he putting on his RP kind of really proper British voice that you see him in everything in, or is he because he's trying to like. Even though he lives in a swanky neighborhood, he's trying to act like the dustman.
He's the hobo.
He's
yeah.
like, yeah.
What
such
I
a-
found was hilarious was like, do I feel sorry for him that he's had all of his dogs taken away? Because that's really sad, but you keep him in a fucking
He's
cage.
keeping them in a cage the
Yeah,
whole time.
like, you
but
deserve
they're my
it.
friends. Like, who treats their friends like that? But even the thing, like, the reason he reads the Valentine's card, whatever it is, blah, 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 but we don't like you?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I like that at all. And then the next scene, he's just hung himself.
No, like, he was triggered.
Yeah. But I really like, I like the kid. Well, he's not really a kid. And that is actually the thing I found confusing watching it now. And surely it would have been something confusing when you're watching it in 1972 or 74. Like, I was like, is that the guy's son? I thought it was like, or is it his gay lover? And like because they're just, there's a weird
odd.
dynamic between those two.
Because I kind of thought he was a work associate.
Yeah, like it's weird. He's like, what are you thinking? Like I've never seen a father and son
I know.
talk
Look,
like that to each other.
And we're not laying much context down for people that haven't seen it. Like, because what we're talking about now makes no sense unless you have seen it. But
Yeah.
look, so it's a very good segment about a hobo that lives across the road, rich people across the road that hate him.
Yeah, like it's in a swanky neighborhood, and he lives in the worst house on the neighborhood. He's been there from before it was a swanky neighborhood.
Yep.
And then the two guys across the road, the father and son,
They want to buy his house.
they think he's devaluing the house property, so they come up with ways to kind of force him to move and sell.
Yep.
Um,
But my hands down, my favorite of all the segments is Reflection of Death, the car accident one. That creeped me out.
you know who that is?
Who?
The guy?
No.
It's Ian Hendry, who is I forgot what your eyes look like, but they're still the same. Piss holes in the snow from Get Carter.
Oh my god!
He's the
Yeah, yeah.
chauffeur guy. That was a god awful Michael Caine. It wasn't even trying to do a Michael Caine, but
But
that's
that's a great segment. Like, it really is eerie and creepy and
Yeah.
and a little bit violent.
and it's good that they don't show you what he looks like for the majority of it. But it is such a weird thing where he just one day just decides to like just leave his kids and
I know.
his wife, and like she has completely oblivious to any issue.
Well, it must be said also, like, that's my favorite segment, but the one that is the most affecting, because as a kid, it's the only one that stood out. Because I saw this movie as a midnight movie when I was probably about 12, right? So that's where I knew it from. But Blind Alley definitely is the one that stood out, which is the one with the corridor full of razor blades.
The funny thing is that that's the one to me that starts off the worst. Like I like it and everything.
It's
but
a slow build
It's
too.
a slow build,
Yeah.
and you just like these blind people. Like, why are all these blind people? And maybe that's just how they were treated. But you feel like you're in a retirement home rather than a home for the blind.
Yeah,
Like
but that's their issue, isn't it? That they're being treated
Yeah.
like, they're invalids and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And look, it is a very slow build, and I'm watching it thinking, I don't remember it being this arduous when I was a kid. Like, I must have just been absorbed in it. But the payoff's great.
The payoff is great.
It's it's really short, sweet, swift, and sharp.
Yeah.
Sharp. I said I wouldn't do puns.
But it's and it is an odd thing because knowing what we know now about diet,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like your dog would become a cannibal after 3 days or
I
whatever
know.
he's locked in. They're not locked in there. He's banging on like he's starving, and you're like, has it really been that long? Like, You haven't even eaten your clothes yet.
So you've got this new administrator, or I don't know what you would call him, new
Yeah,
boss
the
of
administrator.
the blind. What is this place? It's a blind home.
Yeah, it's a
Institute.
It's a home.
And he treats it like an asylum. So he deprives them of good food, gives them slop, and they keep complaining, wanting better standards. They're cold. They don't get
Yeah,
blankets.
he turns off the heating. He does all sorts of stuff
Yeah.
to save money.
So as punishment, they lock him in a room. They lock his dog in a separate room, and then over the course of a few days to a week, they start building something, and he doesn't know what it is. And when they finally open
and
the
then
door,
he starves them.
he starves them.
They starve the dog and him.
So when they open the door, he's faced with a custom-made corridor that's lined with razor blades. And
gets
so he's at
narrower
one end,
as he walks
and at the
down.
other end, they unleash the dog. And just as he's entering the corridor of razors, they flip the light switch. It goes pitch black, and the dog attacks. And so
Yeah.
he flays and just tears himself up with these razor blades. And that was done in the TV show, but I actually think that this version is better.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I would like to see the TV show version.
I don't remember who was in that one. I think it was a fairly well-known name. Most of those episodes had someone
Yeah.
prominent, but it was better in this original. I think maybe that's just my memory of being a child and attaching myself to it.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's our first one, Tales from the Crypt. It's
But
great.
I did like. I was going to say I did like the Wish You Were Here, which is their version of the Monkey's Paw.
Oh yeah.
That's a pretty good one where and the guy like literally warns her of the very thing happening. But like in this one, it's like this guy owes a bunch of money, and they realize they've got this statue that they bought from a mysterious Chinese shop in Hong Kong, and it grants wishes. Like they don't realize that she kind of the first one she wishes that she had a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, her husband goes off to meet her, their business, like their financial advisor or whatever the hell he is. He gets into a car accident and dies. And of course, he's got a massive life insurance policy. So she ends up with a lot of money.
Yep.
And then it's this great bit where she wishes him back to life. And they're like, no. They tell her beforehand, like, the reason that they died is still there.
Yeah.
So, and of course, by this stage, her husband's been embalmed.
Wakes up embalmed.
He wakes up embalmed. So he's got all of the embalming, which makes no sense. Like he would have had his brains pulled out of his nose and all that kind of stuff. It's all like
magic,
he's got he's got all of the embalming fluid running. So he's just in agony, and she's like, I wish he would never die. So he's just stuck like that for eternity in agony.
It's a wonderful film. I do highly recommend it. It got released on a Blu-ray through Scream Factory, which is what I have it on. And that's joined with Vault of Horror, which was made the year later. And the same production company at this time. It was a glorious time because they made I think 5 or 6 anthology movies, all kind of like you could marathon them and feel like you're watching the same thing. You had Asylum, which was written by Robert Bloch. Tales That Witness Madness. Then you had From Beyond the Grave, Dr. Terror's House of Horror, and The House That Dripped Blood. And I recommend all of them. It's been a long time since I've seen them all, but
Yeah.
love that 70s nostalgia. They're grotesque too. And a couple more before we move on. I wanted to note Two Evil Eyes, which is one that Romero and Argento did together with Harvey Keitel. That's really good. Trilogy of Terror is an iconic one with Karen Black. And that.
Funnily enough, I've only seen Trilogy of Terror 2.
Yeah, I was going to say that had a sequel. It was not
Yeah.
very good. And her character from Trilogy of Terror popped up in another movie somewhere later down the line. It could have been a Full Moon movie. I don't remember. But yeah, cool. I reckon we're off to a good start. Tales from the Crypt is probably the perfect way and the most fitting way to kick off this show.
What's up, everybody? It's Guillermo here from ScreenRealm.com, Australia's favorite entertainment website covering all things movies and television. Hope everyone's doing well out there. As always, I'm here to tell you a little bit about what we've covered on the website in the past week, kicking off with Emily Blunt potentially starring in Christopher Nolan's next film, titled Oppenheimer. Cillian Murphy will be starring in the film, playing Robert Oppenheimer, the scientist who ran the Manhattan Project, the project that invented the atomic bomb. Deadline broke the news reporting that Emily Blunt, if cast, she's currently in negotiations, so it's looking pretty good, she'll be playing Catherine Oppenheimer, the wife of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan is also writing this film, which is based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning book American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer by Kate Bird and the late Martin J. Sherwin. As of now, the Universal Pictures film will be opening on July 21st, 2023 in the US. Next up, Tiffany Haddish and Wesley Snipes are set to star in a comedy titled Back on the Strip. The film is to be led by Spence Moore II, whose credits include series AP, Bio, All American, and Blackout, playing a young man named Merlin who moves to Las Vegas to pursue his dream of becoming a magician. This is after he loses the woman of his dreams, but then a wardrobe malfunction unveils his gift, and he's recruited to become the frontman of an infamous male group. This will be the directorial debut of Chris Spencer, who's known as the creator of Real Husbands of Hollywood and an executive producer and writer of Grownish. And speaking of Merlin, Disney has chosen the director for their live-action Merlin film, which is to be an adaptation of T.A. Barron's book series that holds King Arthur's wizardry mentor at the center of the story. Ridley Scott was once attached to this to direct, and now Deadline is reporting that director Michael Matthews has taken the helm. This will be the third feature film for Matthews, whose previous credits include the Netflix release Love and Monsters, which is quite a cool little film by the way, and Five Fingers for Marseille. Now it's still early in development for this one, so there's not too much to go on. It's going to be interesting to finally get a big screen film about Merlin specifically, as most stories have focused of course on King Arthur, although Merlin has been the subject on a number of TV outings. That about does it for me, guys. As always, ScreenRealm.com for your movie and TV news. We've also got the latest trailers and giveaways. Oh, before I go, we do have a giveaway up right now. Thanks to Acorn Media, we're giving away DVD copies of Sun and Fried Barry, 2 Shudder horror films that are going to be released on Blu-ray and DVD in Australia on October the 20th. So we have DVD copies of those films to give away. Be sure to jump on ScreenRealm.com, go to our win page and enter. Thanks so much, guys. I'll catch you next week.
Welcome, kiddies. Would you like to dance to death? All you have to do is come to the Crypt Keeper's party. A monster bash, if you will. Come on down! Sure it will get grave reviews beyond time if you can. But this is the Crypt Jam. Just jam. Oh, jam. The Crypt Keeper's in the house with a groove that's nasty and mean, like the effects of a guillotine. Permanent headaches, the end of the mission, where you have entered the Keeper's television. So everybody just make that a dash to the Crypt Keeper's monster bash. So come along with the Keeper's plan. But this is the Crypt Jam. Jam. You horns. Accent. All right, everybody. Listen to me. Here we go now. Everybody in the house, let me see you go. All the monsters go. All the people and your friends go. Everybody in the house go. Everybody. This is the funky breakdown. Hit it! Dance! This is the Crypt Jam. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 jam. I gotta tell ya, it's just how I am. 'Cause this is the Crypt Jam. Oh, jam. This is the Crypt Jam. Oh, jam. Dance.
The Crypt Jam 1992. There's nothing like it, man.
No.
Except maybe Do the Bartman. I was trying to think, like, can you think of any novelty songs that characters from TV shows actually released as songs? Not actors, but characters. Because Do the Bartman, Crip Jam, like iconic. Both have a Danny Elfman connection as well, by the way.
I mean, Elvira's has had a couple of albums.
Yes, there you go. There's one.
Although a lot of them, it's like the TV show. She just presents other people's songs.
Yeah.
But she has. I've seen. There's this one with her in it, but I think it was written by the John Paragon, or John Paragon and Pee Wee Herman are all in it.
Yep.
And it's all about getting fat and eating food.
Ooh.
It is on YouTube.
I'll look it up.
It is great, but I can't remember if in that song she's there as Elvira, or she's just as Cassandra Peterson.
All right, we'll get back on that one and maybe reveal all next week. What do optimistic vampires drink?
I don't know if I want to know. What?
Be positive. How fucking dumb am I? Telling shit ass jokes right before we have a chat with John Kassir, master of jokes and puns, former stand-up comedian. Fucking hell. But let's do that. Let's play my chat with John Kassir. I wanted a particularly special guest for our Halloween episode, and he was the first guy that came to mind, and you can imagine how fucking excited I was when he said yes.
I mean, it's because Vincent Price is dead, right? No offense to John who's listening to the show. But your first go to would always be Vincent Price. Right?
Yeah, and I would have opened the show with
yes.
But the Crypt Keeper himself, horror icon, yeah, you can imagine how fucking excited I was when he said yes. Amazing chat. So here it is. Hope you enjoy it. Mr. John Kassir, fucking hilarious too. There you go. Too many fucks. G'day, John. Thanks for making time for me, mate. How are you?
Fine, kiddies.
At least I don't have to ask. We're thrilled to have you as part of our Halloween series of shows, mate. And I imagine this time of year must be absolutely nuts for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, I'm the original guy from Down Under. 6 feet under. Yeah, of course, man. You know, Halloween. I mean, it was always my favorite horror day anyway as a kid, you know. I was completely into I collected Tales from the Crypt comic books, and for those who are uninitiated, these comic books were quite controversial back in the 50s and 60s because you know, mothers claimed that they caused juvenile delinquency in children. So they tried to get the U.S. government to shut them down. And I, of course, would hide them in my Casper comics and stuff, you know, and order stuff from the back of the comic books. I remember having like a 6-foot cardboard cutout of Frankenstein, you know, in the corner of my room. I swear that thing would get closer to my bed as every time I woke up, it would be a little closer. That could have been my brother doing that to me, but you know, they didn't have, you know, streaming or videotape or on demand or any way to see something when you wanted to see it. So I would have to flip through the TV pages to find out what was playing that week and see if, you know, the 4:00 movie called Twilight Movie in Baltimore, where I grew up, was playing any of the Universal horror monster movies, or, you know, the sci-fi flicks like Attack of the 50-Foot Woman or Mothra, or, you know, one of these great movies. And they would play the Roger Corman movies, you know, Tingler and you know, House of Wax and all these great, you know, Vincent Price movies and that kind of thing. So that was you know, but especially the Universal horror monster movies were my favorite. So, you know, when I got a chance to audition, I was doing another series for HBO on camera, and they knew they wanted somebody who could do voices and be funny and, you know, also, you know, bring a personality to this character. You know, they thought of me and brought me in to try to bring him to life.
And where did the voice come from? Like, was there a particular figure in your life or someone from pop culture that inspired it?
No, I just, you know, they actually had the auditions at Kevin Yeager's studio. And for those of you who don't know, Kevin Yeager is, you know, not only made Chucky and designed Freddy and all these other, you know, creatures that he's famous for doing. Let me see if I can get this with this green screen thing. but he was designing the puppet, and so they actually had the auditions down at the at his studio. So actually, I mean, I was a kid in the candy store anyway, walking into his studio with all these body parts hanging off the walls, and and all this thing, and he was creating this, but they didn't give him much of a budget to start. It was HBO was relatively new at the time, and they didn't have a lot of money, and so they weren't giving him a lot of money to work with, and he was making this amazing puppet. There was a couple of different versions of him, and he was using spare parts out of his shop. It's people don't realize this, but the Crypt Keeper has Chucky's eyes.
Yes.
And he just thought that was going to be temporary, but he loved him so much he kept it. Just perfect for the Crypt Keeper. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
so, I really based it on what I saw and the copy that they gave me, like any other part you'd audition for. And, I think I got the material more than some of the other people who were auditioning. There were some, comics that I had like myself, that I recognized, and then some voice actors and those kind of things. And they're looking at the copy, kind of confused, going, "Be careful what you ask for. You may get it." They're like, "This is terrible. What is this?" And I'm sitting there going, "These guys don't get it. This is like Shakespeare to this guy."
Yep.
Alfred Hitchcock said puns were the highest form of alliteration. And so, I mean, the personality, I loved Alfred Hitchcock Presents as a series, and his, wry humor. So, I brought that kind of attitude towards him, the hosting aspects of the character. And, my stand-up career was kind of an interesting thing that kind of happened to me. I was doing an off-Broadway musical about stand-up comics, called Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down. It was Scott Bakula, who you all know from Quantum Leap and NCIS, New Orleans, and all these great shows. Played the MC kind of character, and it was me. I played like the Andy Kaufman-ish kind of character, and my buddy Jerry Colker played the lawyer turned left law school to become a stand-up, the angry comic, and think Dreamgirls, but for stand-up comics. It was a musical. We played all the agents. We played all the other characters. It was really, really great. And people, I had been street performing when I wasn't working in the theater, which paid shit anyway. And so I kind of infused some of my bits that I had created when I was growing up, and all these things. And one of my bits was I did the Wizard of Oz in 2.5 minutes. And, and while I was doing the show, these people asked me to audition for Star Search, which was in its first season, which was the first, really high profile competition performer show. And I said, "What, as a singer? You want me to come on as a singer?" Because they saw me in the musical, and they're like, "No, we want you to come on as a comic." And I'm like, "I'm not really a stand-up comic." They go, "Well, you can win $100,000. They're like, "Fuck, have you seen my act?" I was like, So I got my ass into the clubs. I started working up all my material, but I didn't have any jokes. So I was doing like my Wizard of Oz bit, and I was doing, I created this idea of a guy who was addicted to television. He could switch channels on himself and flip through Star Trek, and Scotty, be out of here. "I can't, Captain, about to get a work factory. She's going to blow." "He's dead, Jim. It's a twister. It's a twister. Dorothy." And I flipped through all these channels. And so, the only thing I guess I really plugged into that was maybe like the Margaret Hamilton Wicked Witch of the West laugh,
Yeah, totally.
And as I was doing it for Kevin Yeager in his studio, and he didn't really have like a recording studio or anything. He just had like a boom box with a little lav mic attached to it that I was recording into a video, into a cassette tape.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it for him, and he must have been through everything that wasn't working, because he was sitting there like this, and all of a sudden he was like, he's doing this, and it's cracking me up, and I'm like going, and I start laughing at my own jokes, and adding puns, and and he's laughing and I'm laughing. I go, great, the character laughs at his own jokes. And the next thing I know, because I gave him that rasp because he had all these holes in his throat and rotting teeth,
Yeah.
and within the next day or two, he had me doing it for Joel Silver and Dick Donner, who were the biggest guys in the business, in some
Amazing.
little trailer, in some set that they were starting to shoot the show. And they were working on building the crypt, which is what you see behind
Mhm.
me. And that kind of thing, as well as a set. And they had all this stuff going. And I did it for him in the trailer. He go, great, we'll see you on the set. And I was just like, as an actor, you never believe it till somebody sends you a contract and you actually get the check in the mail. It's like, so, and that was 1988. And we went on the air in 1989, and and that was it. The Crypt Keeper evolved over the years because, like I said, they didn't give him much, budget. So like the original Crypt, this is one of the here. Let me get this. There we go. There we go. This one was this version of the Crypt Keeper was a little further into the the series, where they gave him a little more money to add servos. Those are those little
Yeah.
hobbyist motors that you do model airplanes and stuff, and spruce him up so he could talk faster and funnier. But because he had such little money, like the mouth barely moved, and Kevin would go into the studio to record, and Kevin was like, no, you got to slow down because the puppeteers won't be able to keep up with you because of the mouth. And, so if you look at the earlier episodes, he talks slower and more ominously. But then when the show got picked up and was a bona fide hit, they gave us more money, and Kevin spruced him up, so I was able to do that stand-up delivery that I originally auditioned for him.
Amazing. It's like the two of you were tussling for screen time there. When you
totally. It's like, But
So
this was gosh, even if I put it on the same plane, it doesn't want to appear. This was the instead of a spreadsheet at the premiere of Bordello of Blood, they gave these out.
Oh, amazing.
They're kind of collectible. People always try to steal them from me at the conventions because I'll bring one with me and hold it up behind people, so they're being photobombed by the Crypt Keeper when I'm posing for photos with them and stuff.
So tell me about recording the TV series. Did you record a bunch of episodes at once, or did each episode get done in its own session?
Usually each episode got done in its own session, because once they got the tone of the show, even if they had already written it, they may have adjusted it to what came out, as they were shooting. It was, an expensive show to shoot, so they were asking a lot of favors. I mean, all those stars and everybody worked for scale, but these were big producers and everybody wanted to work for them. And Gil Adler, who was the showrunner, was really great at getting that show on budget and getting creative people who could do a lot with, had to do a lot without money, And so, I mean, I think maybe the most I ever recorded at a time would have been 2 episodes. They may have been, because they may have been working on 2 at the same time. Like they would have 2 different camera crews, and one would be prepping for the next episode while the other one was shooting. So then they could just continue right into production into each show. And so and obviously they would have to shoot those as well, so we would pre-record like a rock video so that the puppeteers could I mean, it took 3 puppeteers just to make the face move, and they could coordinate together. But those guys became so good, we could do live interviews where they were watching me, and I'd slow it down a little bit. So I'd be like, and go into some of my stock answers and stuff. And the guy who was working the mouth was like, he had like a headgear on. So he'd be like, hello, kiddies. How are you? And we were actually could do like live interviews as the Crypt Keeper on camera.
That is cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And
it was very cool. Those guys were really talented.
And for those like the intros and outros for the show, did you get any direction from the celebrity guest directors, or did you have your own director for those?
It depended on who was involved and whether they had time.
Mm.
There were things where I was on the set. They'd bring me on the set if they had other actors in the scene with the Crypt Keeper, like Whoopi Goldberg or Arnold Schwarzenegger or these kind of things. They would bring me on the set, so they had somebody live to play to off camera as opposed to just a video recording, a recording that they had to play off of. So, and then if we had to adjust the timing later, we could. But so in those sense, I got to, but yeah, I mean, they pretty much, if I wanted to go down to the set anytime I wanted, I could. I remember wanting to go down and see Tim Curry play Winona and the mother and father of in Death of Some Salesman. And my parents had happened to be in town from the East Coast, and they've never got to see anything shot. They have no concept of the Hollywood system whatsoever. They're really kind of old-fashioned people that way. And I brought them down, and they just couldn't believe that was a Tim Curry doing this awful hunchback woman. They did so much detail on him. They even gave him like hammer toes and stuff, jammed into these ugly earth shoes and stuff, and he was just brilliant. I mean, he was nominated for an Emmy for that performance. I mean, he was really, really wonderful. But
such a unique show in terms of horror. Like, there's been a lot of anthology shows since, but nothing like that.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
I mean, they truly went out of their way to make it feel like the comic book. They even used some of the comic book frames as storyboards for the shots and that kind of thing when it came down to it, the art directors and stuff. But, anybody who's talked about doing another version of the Tales from the Crypt that didn't involve us, the rights reverted back to EC Comics, of course. And so we haven't been able to secure them back and do more. Who knows if we could even afford to do the show nowadays. But
I was actually about to ask you that because, suddenly with streaming services, there's a revival of anthology. You've got, Creepshow on Shudder and even like Fear Street on Netflix. Surely the time is right if there was going to be a revival. But I remember hearing that M. Night Shyamalan was trying to do it without the Crypt Keeper, and that just blew my mind. Who would?
Well, they wanted to, they would have probably come up with their own version of the Crypt Keeper. This one is our guys, Joel and Dick and those guys, they own this version of him. Yeah. Although they can't use him as the Crypt Keeper because they don't own Tales from the Crypt for new material anymore. They own the stuff they made, but they'd have to get the rights back from EC Comics in order to make more involving this Crypt Keeper. So obviously the Crypt Keeper was in the comic books, and so they could, make their own version. They could put Steve Buscemi in a shroud or something, and he could be the Crypt Keeper.
He's got the eyes for it.
But yeah, exactly. But I mean, which I think would be ridiculous. But I mean, I think that those rights didn't work out because they were trying to do a whole block of horror with was it TNT or TBS? One of the two, TNT, I think. And I mean, you got to be the right person to do this. And everybody who was trying to do something different with it, it wouldn't have been Tales from the Crypt. It would have been called Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
But come on, it has to encompass the comic book. You have to bring the comic book to life. That's really what it's about. And the Crypt Keeper was designed and was made the show successful in that his job was to let this is supposed to be fun, that it's tongue in cheek, that it may be scary and gory and edgy themes and sexual and all these things, but ultimately it's meant to be fun, which is why we wound up with a kids audience that we didn't know we had.
Yeah,
which to this day is a larger audience than the original people who saw it, which is my fan base on top of the other projects that I've done, the specific Tales from the Crypt fan base, are kids who grew up in the 90s that, either snuck down and watched it. Their parents let them watch it because their parents were hip. There's people that are like, oh, my parents wouldn't let me watch it, but I watched it with my grandmother on the weekends. We loved it, that kind of stuff. a lot of kids were watch the cartoon version. And then, and then there was other kids that were allowed to just see the Crypt Keeper sequences. I mean, what kid's going to walk by a TV, no matter how scary that puppet is, and not want to
Yeah, yeah.
Want to see it? I loved ventriloquist dummies as a kid, no matter how creepy they were to other people. I have a collection of them. It's just
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love them.
If I could just talk about the films for a moment, a piece of trivia a lot of people might not realize is that From Dusk Till Dawn and The Frighteners both originally began as scripts from Tales from the Crypt. So I think that's a fantastic piece of trivia. But can you clear up something about the third one, Ritual? Did you record that and was removed from it, or were you brought in to shoehorn it into the franchise?
It was added later. I mean, they had always planned on doing it as a Tales from the Crypt movie, but it was done with somebody else. The other ones were done with Universal, I believe, Bordello of Blood, and the first one, Demon Knight, which Demon Knight's in my top 5 horror movies. I mean, it's so awesome.
Same here. Incredible.
The soundtrack is unbelievable. That casting is unbelievable. Ernest Dickerson did an amazing job with that movie, and Bordello of Blood. But then they were going to make this third movie. They'd always planned on it, but it wound up doing it through another. I think they were doing it with Miramax, which at that time, was the Weinsteins, and then they bailed on Miramax at that point. I think it was taken over by Disney or something, but I can't remember. Don't quote me on any of this, on that aspects of it.
Yep.
But I do know that it got shelved. It was just part of a library that went to whoever took it over. And as they eventually got around to looking at everything, they went, oh, it's a horror movie. It's got Jennifer Grey. It's got Craig Sheffer. It's got Tim Curry. Okay. It didn't have a Crypt Keeper sequence that we shot for it yet. And so they put it with on a video with some other movie. I don't even think it was billed on the box. I don't think it was called Rituals. And then there became so many people going, whatever happened to that? I think it was originally called The Big Easy because it took place in New Orleans. And, it was, and everybody kept going, what happened to that movie? What happened to that movie? And they were like, oh, let's, it's not going to cost us much. Let's do a Crypt Keeper sequence and we'll reimagine it. And they used they didn't want to hire the puppeteers. They didn't want to spend the money. So they got this automated face puppet, which I was just like, if I had known that, I would have not even agreed to do it.
Yeah.
But it was I was like, are you kidding me? Come on. The quality of the show is one of the reasons why it's so great. It still holds up,
Yeah, totally.
And so, it wound up being, and, a lot of people were like, this isn't bad. This is fun. It feels like a lengthened Tales from the Crypt episode. Certainly not Demon Knight.
Yeah.
And Bordello of Blood certainly wasn't Demon Knight either. But people who love Tales from the Crypt love Bordello of Blood, especially young men.
I love it. Yeah, I think both of the first two films are favorites of ours on this show. We talk about them fairly frequently, for sure. Yeah. And the great is it Charles Fleischer in Demon Knight? Just what a legend! I love it.
Yeah, Charlie and I will go to we'll be invited to screenings along with Richard Donner, and the two of us will dick off each other because we used to do improv at the improvisation in LA together years ago, and we'll start riffing. And Charlie's insane. I mean,
he is. I wish he would bring his podcast back. I just love the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And so we'll have some fun doing that every once in a while. At some of these screenings and that kind of thing. So
awesome. Well, we are running out of time, but before I let you go, on a personal note, what are some of your favorite films in general, horror or non-related?
Well, I was just having a conversation last night. I had over the house here one of the biggest directors in Hollywood. He's a friend of mine, and I'm not going to name him because he lives a very personal life. But we were talking about how Lawrence of Arabia has always been one of my favorites. David Lean with those huge epics were always some of my favorite movies. Whether it was Dr. Zhivago or Lawrence of Arabia, or I mean, these were amazing movies. In terms of horror movies, I mean, the ones that really creeped me out were stuff like, The Exorcist and Omen and movies like that. Certainly, I love the monster movies. Slasher films are fun, but they don't have the gravitas of what a movie can be on top of just being a horror movie. I mean, if you really think about it, Jaws is a horror movie.
Yeah, totally.
And that's one of my favorites, and it holds up like to this day for that reason. But I love so many movies. I loved going to the movies. As a little kid, my mom used to send. There were 5 kids in my family. She'd send the 5 of us with, brown paper bags. She'd make her own popcorn with the grease, bleeding through the bag. And, get our quarter or whatever it costs to go to the movies. And no, I'm not that old. That's just how cheap it used to be. And we'd go and see a Disney animated film or something like that, which are some of my favorites. I work a lot for Illumination, and they make unbelievable movies. So I have a wide range of movies that I love, but ultimately, I always loved all the Bond films.
For sure.
So Hollywood at its best is really what I'm looking for in a film. But at the same time, I love going to a good film festival and seeing something really personal. With the acting is fantastic.
Certainly. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, John, your work is so much more than Tales from the Crypt, and I would encourage everybody to do a deep dive into your catalogue of films because it's an incredible body of work. And just want to thank you so much for your time. I used to stay up every night watching reruns with a mate, and so it's an absolute honour for me to connect with you like this.
Thank you.
And be careful what you ask for. You may get it.
Mate, amazing. I'm going to check that one off my bucket list. My goodness. How fun's that guy?
You're just making friends with all of with all your childhood heroes. They say never meet your heroes, and you're doing it. But it seems to be working out all right for you.
He will never shake the Tales from the Crypt Association. I think that's a given. But if you are interested in his work, he's done loads. He's like Mark Hamill and John DiMaggio. He's got that much animation
Mel Blanc.
work. Yeah, he's got so much animation. Totally. So much to look
and
into.
That guy who's replaced Mel Blanc now.
Shit. Well, I know that John Kassir is probably going to be listening to this. So thank you again, John. It's been a pleasure, sir. And I apologise for the jokes.
You should.
Speaking of, a ghost walks into a bar, completely sheet-faced.
Jesus Christ. The barman says, "Why the white face?"
Welcome to Bonehead Weekly Fun Size. It's spooky time. It's Halloween season, gentlemen. And you know what they have in the Australian outback?
There's a book called The Roo.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to The Roo. If you've never read The Roo, whether you be Australian or otherwise, it's a horror novel about a kangaroo. And if you thought Cujo was bad, beware The Roo.
That turns cannibal and eats out Weenie the Pooh.
No, seriously.
I said Weenie.
Weenie the Pooh.
Weenie the Pooh. Weenie the Pooh.
Can I talk about my movie? I actually had a serious movie.
Okay. Well,
it's got moving pictures and Rhoda Mitchell in it and Sam Worthington before he became, oh, look at me, I'm in these avatars. Anyway, it's Greg McLean's Rogue. No one paid a lot of attention to it when it came out, or at least in the States. It was overshadowed by another giant crocodile picture with Orlando Jones, if you guys remember that. But Rogue is one of the best giant killer croc films I've ever saw. So I really recommend it. If you not, check it out, Rogue. I'm pretty sure there's 5 million of them over there in Australia, and they just have to watch out for them.
I'm not going to go into much detail on mine, but I was trying to think of diverse types of films you could watch. Some that are a little more comedic, but still have a high body count, or some that are psychological. So I just thought I'd ramble off 3. Again, I always have to mention Session 9.
That's not in Australia.
No, I didn't say mine was.
We're not doing Australia. You're
the one that said I
want to do Australia.
You're trying to suck
crocodiles.
You're trying to suck up to Ben because you won't get
I want to move in with
connection.
Ben, so I'm going to talk about
Don't
Australian
you be jelly.
films.
Look at you.
Anyway,
it doesn't suit you, Green.
But Session 9's a slow burn. I would argue Innkeepers is another one to check out, kind of a slow burn as well. And then
Innkeepers is really good.
let's skip that. Maybe you're not into slow burns. Maybe you need a body count, some gore, but also want a little bit of humor even.
James,
Check
I
out
have to edit this fucker.
Feast. Check out Feast. There you go.
All
Session
right.
9 and Keeper's Feast.
Well, anyway, it's Halloween. So I need to talk about, of course, a movie that features Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and Frankenstein, if they were 3 feet tall. I am talking about Deformed Monsters, aka The Creeps, directed by Charlie Band, written by Neil Marshall Stevens. Dracula is played by the amazing Phil Fondacaro. If you're familiar with Ghoulies 2, Garbage Pail Kids, the movie, he is an amazing actor from the 80s. It's all about this scientist who pulls out these artifacts to bring the universal monsters to life to wreak havoc. And there's a horrible accident, and they come out as tiny little guys who still want to wreak havoc. If you haven't seen it, YouTube it, because you can't find a copy of it anywhere.
I thought it was pronounced crepes, and it came with fillings.
This is
You don't have any fillings. What'd you say, Chad?
This has been Bonehead Weekly Funsies.
Funsize.
Chad threw an absolute banger at us there. The Creeps, the Charles Band Full Moon movie with Phil Fondacaro.
Phil Fondacaro. I do like The Creeps.
I've not seen that in a long time. I'm gonna have to track it down again. But thank you, Boneheads. Oddly less Halloweeny than I had anticipated from them. Like, they're supposed to be the kings of Halloween, coming from Kentucky.
Yeah, they're at the birthplace. No, not the birthplace of Halloween. It wasn't invented in Kentucky. It's KFC. It's the birthplace of KFC.
Bourbon KFC.
And bourbon.
You can find the Bonehead Weekly on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you, guys. Much appreciated. Speaking of The Creeps, which has a...
Night of the Creeps?
Well, no, the Creeps has a kind of distinct Monster Squad feel to it. And another anthology movie is from 1981 called The Monster Club, with Vincent Price, Donald Pleasance, John Carradine, Britt Eklund, Patrick McGee, again, who was in Tales from the Crypt. I'm not going to talk about the film, only to say that it's worth a look. Vincent Price actually sings the Monster Mash in this film. And it kind of has this weird fucking funky disco scene that's a bit like Soul Train with Vincent Price, and that is worth it for the price of admission alone.
So I haven't seen it, but last year there actually is an anthology horror documentary that I believe David Gregory from Severin Entertainment made. I believe it's David Gregory who did it. And we played it at Monster Fest, and we played it with a anthology horror movie. Now, we played it with Night Train to Terror, but that was over the strenuous objections by Mr. Jarrett Garn, who wanted to play Monster Club.
Okay, because I was going to say, I think I recalled Jarrett talking about this film, and that's what it would have been, because he definitely mentioned it on the show.
Yeah.
And I watched it since, and I liked it, but it's pretty hokey. But have you got another one we want to focus on?
Well, I could talk about a couple.
Yeah, go for it.
I actually really liked. Like, I watched a bunch of them in preparation for this show. There's a couple of segments in like I watched the Creep shows again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're pretty good. They've also got like ones that are stronger than the others. Like, I really liked Old Chief Woodenhead from Creepshow 2.
Well, Creepshow 2 is let down by the fact it's only 3 installments.
It's only 3 parts.
Yeah.
And the other two, like, I did like The Raft. I didn't realize that the ginger girl in that is Daryl Hannah's sister.
Oh, right.
Like, that's
The Raft is great. I've got a T-shirt of The Raft. I
right.
just love that. That's my favorite of the sequel.
And it's such a like low production value, not low production value, but just like a simple idea that didn't require that much.
And the story's good if you have the anthology book that it's from. It's fantastic.
But I really like. I didn't realize watching it that it was Holt McCallany was the Indian in the Old Chief Woodenhead, the one who robs the store.
Mm.
Like, because he's popping up in freaking everything now. I didn't realize I thought he was a guy who and later on it'll come into play too, but like kind of like a Steve Buscemi kind of thing who seemed to only come into things late.
Yeah, right.
But then he's doing stuff, and he was like, he's the young, good-looking kind of guy with his magical hair. It was great, and like George Kennedy, I love anything with
Absolutely.
George Kennedy, and it's great. But One that I actually really liked that I watched for the first time was Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
Which is essentially Creepshow 3, according to Tom Savini.
Yeah, and it is great. Like,
Yeah.
and like I love that in so many of these kind of anthologies and stuff, Debbie Harry pops up. Like, she just pops up in all these kind of weird stuff that you just, what's Debbie Harry?
Isn't
doing
Christian
in this?
Slater in this one too?
Yes. Well, funnily enough, he's in the one with Steve Buscemi, who looks like he's about 12 years old. So I'm guessing, I don't know when this movie was made, but I'm guessing it would have been around the time as same time as kind of Miller's Crossing.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
He's like super young. And that's the one with, and Julianne Moore is in that same episode.
Wow.
Where he gets a mummy sent to him in the mail, and it comes, he discovers this scroll that lets him control the mummy.
Yes.
And then he kind of bumps off his college rivals.
Do you know what? I was never a fan of Tales from the Dark Side, the TV show. I didn't like it. There's only one I ever really liked, and that was the Stephen King one. Sorry, right number. But the movie I always did like, and it made sense when I found out that it originally was conceived as Creepshow 3. And because it has that feel to it, it doesn't really have a Tales from the Dark Side feel.
Yeah. I mean, this one, once again, it is only 3. And the other ones, I mean, look, you get points for having William Hickey in your anthology film, and once again he's wheelchair bound, but he's always great to watch. And David Johansen, he's always fun. But and in the third one, it's James Remar, and in a role that you don't get to see James Remar play much, which is like he plays like this kind of sensitive artist, but he's still James Remar.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool, and he's like paired with Ray Dawn Chong, who I've always had a thing for, and their story is pretty good. Like a kind of like I liked all of the bits, but the connecting story for this is my favorite one because it's almost like a kind of Scheherazade type thing where it's Scheherazade from 1001 Nights meets Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah,
because it's Debbie Harry has captured this kid, this paper boy, and locked him in her kitchen when she's about to cook him for this dinner for her friends, and he keeps telling her stories to delay his inevitable cooking. It's really good, and she's really good. Like she's so watchable.
See, from
Debbie
two
Harry.
guys that didn't think much of horror anthology films, we're really embracing them.
Yeah.
Have you got any more to add there? I want to throw to one in a sec.
Well, look, if you like, I mean, there's a couple more. I don't know if you want to talk about them. So, I was going to talk about Cat's Eye, which I wasn't. I thought I'd watch because I knew you were going to talk about it. Or
go for it
originally, and I thought I just want to because I hadn't seen it before. I was like, I would just want to watch it. And it's Lewis Teague. It is great. Like,
fantastic.
I like everything about it.
Yep.
Like I like although this one's funny in that the wraparound story is actually the third story. Like it's the cat, and it's the cat that connects them all. And I love that at the beginning of the thing, the cat's running away from Cujo.
Yeah, I know.
Like that's a great little touch because it's Lewis Teague and it's Stephen King.
Yep.
Like it's really clever.
What's your favourite one out of these? For me, I think it's Quitters Inc.
Yeah, look, definitely. Like I like the general. Like it reminds me of a film that we watched this year for Monster Fest, but we didn't end up programming. But I do like the general.
Yeah.
But Quitters Inc. is so like. Like when James Woods plays likable, he is so likable.
Yeah,
like he's great, and I don't know who the guy is, but the guy who plays because for people who haven't seen Cat's Eye, Quitters Inc. is James Woods goes to this place. He's recommended it by a friend because he wants to quit smoking because he's just had a baby or
life change.
She's young. And this kind of it shows this world where people are like this is I guess it's the 80s. People are full on hooked on cigarettes. Like they're smoking. It must have like New
back
York
when
at
you
this time,
smoke on a plane in a taxi,
in
all
a
that kind of
cinema,
stuff.
the whole thing, and everything must have just stunk, and there must have been yellow stalactites of tar coming off every roof and every house. But he decides to quit, and what it turns out to be, the place where he goes is actually run. It was run as a tax shelter for the mob, and they've developed this program where they use their money gathering skills to get you to quit. So the first they watch you for the first month, they watch you nonstop.
Yep.
And if they catch you having a cigarette, they don't torture you. They kidnap your wife, or in this case, your partner, whoever that may be. They put them in a room without their shoes, and the floor is electrified.
Yep.
And they set it off. So they basically torture this person. And then the second one, they'll put your kid in the thing.
Yep.
And it has this, this great bit. Of course, James Woods, when it always happened, like people rarely get past the first stage because it's so horrific. And then the great, I don't want to spoil the end.
Yeah, why not?
The kicker at the end, he's done his month and he's kicked the habit kind of thing. And the guy gives him this pack of diet pills and he goes, look, we found that people do, immediately after quitting, they put on weight. And I don't want you to put on any weight. And the guy's like, oh, what are you going to do? Torture my wife if I put on 2 pounds? And he's like, no, we cut off her finger. And they're kind of laughing. And James Woods leaves the office pissing himself laughing. And it's a great joke. And then they're having a dinner party with the friend who put him onto the place. And that's
right.
That's right. They're like, to Quitters Inc. And they all think, and then the guy, his friend's wife, holds up her thing and she's missing a finger. It's such a good bit.
Yep, it's a great film.
Like, it is great.
Yeah, if you love anthologies and haven't seen that one, that's not really even a spoiler. That's just, look forward to it. I want to quickly talk about, real briefly, Tales from Halloween, or Tales of Halloween, I should say. This one's a bit of a passion project. I think Mike Mendez and another female director I haven't heard of, I can't remember her name, I forgot to write it down, put it together.
I
but
actually haven't seen this one, so I can't help you.
It's a labor of love, and it's as Halloween as I think anthologies get. You had the movie Trick or Treat, right?
I really like Trick or
Same
Treat.
here, but this is more of a fanciful kind of fun version of that, not quite as horrific. It's made up of 10 shorts. Some of the standout directors here would be Neil Marshall, Mike Mendez, Lucky McGee, Darren Lynn Bousman, who I think actually directed the most amazing segment of this film, which makes it well worthwhile. Like I said, similar to Trick or Treat, much more comical, but the reason to watch this, as well as some pretty cool little stories, incredible cameos. You've got Joe Dante, Stuart Gordon, Mick Garris, Lynn Shay, Barbara Crampton, John Savage, Adam Green, Caroline Williams, and loads more. Adrienne Barbeau. She plays the MC.
Greg Grunberg, of course.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, Greg Grunberg and Claire Kramer reprise their roles from Big Ass Spider. They're the same characters. Yeah, same costumes as well. And of course, Greg Grunberg, I like to call Fat Keanu.
Yeah.
But the absolute best thing in this entire film is Barry Bostwick.
Yeah.
When Barry Bostwick is good, he is beyond good.
Well, look, I was going to say, if we're going to talk about Barry Bostwick, I just have to shout out to Megaforce, which is such a bizarre film. But if you like Barry Bostwick, you get to see more of Barry Bostwick than you ever thought possible in Megaforce. Definitely one to check out.
I love Barry Bostwick. Doesn't matter what he's in. It could be Teen Beach Movie. He's fantastic in it, and he is fantastic in that, I must say.
I have to say though, I do prefer Barry Bostwick as the older. Yeah, the older man rather than when he was like the leading man.
So I'll quickly tell you about this one. He plays a guy that's feared in the neighborhood. No one wants to trick or treat at his place. He's the spooky old man. They knock on his door. He opens it, and it looks like he's in a devil's costume, like a demon costume. He just is a demon though, right? So he's really a demon. So he only comes out on Halloween because he can. And this little kid, he's about 6 years old, dressed up as a little devil. Knocks on the door and he goes, "Come inside, little boy." And then the next scene is the door opens and they're both walked out together. And this old demon is taking the little devil on a trick-or-treat spree. And it turns into a massive crime spree. And this 6-year-old does all the dirty deeds, right? So and he's loving it. So he thinks it's make-believe. It's a bit like that Satan's Little Helper movie that, what's-his-face did, the Squirm guy. I can't remember his name, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. That movie's weird, like the stuff where she's trying to, where she's sleazing him and
digression.
The daughter and the mother are sleazing over Santa, and you're like, whoa.
Digression. But this little devil is shooting people, stabbing people, goes on like a massive robbery spree, and Barry Bostwick's there in the background going, "Oh, wonderful stuff." And Darren, what's his name? Darren Lynn Bousman or whatever, the guy that made the Saw movies, directed this one. And it is style, substance, and all of that. And it's worth it for that alone. So if you haven't seen Tales of Halloween, check it out. And let's push on. Unless you've got something else to add there. I know you're...
Jeff Liebman.
Jeff Liebman. That's it. Squirm director.
Yeah, look, the only other anthology movie that I would bring up, I'm not sure if this is the last.
No, we've got some more to talk about.
All right, then I'll...
Carry on.
Then I'll...
Okay. Well, let's throw it to Chloe. In celebration of Halloween this week, I asked her to react to Fred Decker's Monster Squad because I know she loves the Goonies and things like that, 80s adventure. And I think this is, for Halloween, it's Goonies in Halloween mode. So
totally.
Let's find out what she thought of it.
Hello and happy Monday, friends. I'm Chloe from Movie Night with the Richie Girls, and this week I was promised the viewing of my absolute favourite type of movie, an 80s adventure classic. Monster Squad was a movie that I hadn't seen before, but now I can cross it off my list. I really wanted to love this movie, and I feel like it definitely had the potential to be a cult classic like my favourites like Goonies or Stand By Me. But I feel like the director, Fred Decker, really put a lot of love into this movie, and he really tried to get it there. But in my opinion, it did fall short. It was a storyline for me. I didn't feel the flow, and I felt like it chopped and changed all over the place. And it was really hard for me to get sucked into the story and believe in it full-heartedly. It was also the inconsistencies, they were really distracting. And although I understand there is a certain formula when it comes to the 80s, when it comes to those kids, teen, action-adventure movies, you know, you always have the main character who's a guy and his comedic best friend, the fat guy, the rebel guy, and the ditzy blonde. But my biggest problem with this movie, and keep in mind, I allowed leniency in my thoughts because I realized that Fred was made to cut down the movie to 90 minutes, but it was the character developments. Any sort of development a character had, it just happened so quickly and without real exploration or visual interpretation. And that just wasn't something that I could get behind. And you know, I also could have done without seeing the scene where the ditzy blonde was being forced into doing something she didn't want to under exposure of her nudes that she didn't realize was being taken of her. But you know, we're going to leave that sleeping duck lie and we're going to move on. Monster Squad also could have used some more 80s pop music, in my opinion. Maybe a little less of Dracula using dynamite. I mean, seriously, where did this dude get all this dynamite? And he's Dracula. Why does he even need it? You know, apart from blowing up clubhouses and rocking his own catchphrases like meeting adjourned, which, you know, honestly made me laugh. It was a good one. On the positive side of the spectrum, the monster costuming was absolutely brilliant. All of them. And as blasphemous as this is to say, Dracula has never really appealed to me, but the Mummy and Frankenstein's monster and Swamp Thing, they were all visually seriously stunning. But I really want to appreciate Werewolf. His transformation, especially for an 80s movie, was crazy good. The effects were top-notch and something extremely positive I took out of this movie, because you all know I much prefer effects to CGI. And although this won't end up being a favorite of mine, this movie is super creative and it is super fun. And I feel like if I had been introduced to this movie at the same age as I saw The Goonies, I think I would have really loved it. This also is a movie that I wouldn't be upset if Fred Decker ever decided to remake it. Now, all in all, I'm glad I watched something I'd never seen before, and I'm always excited to get stuck into a great piece of 80s art. And that's all from me this week with my slightly offensive and alienating opinions, but I'm sticking to it. Have a happy Monday, friends.
Well, fuck. I don't know what to say.
Look, to a degree, I get where she's coming from, to be honest. Like, if you come into that movie late, it's like I remember as a kid seeing the trailers and stuff and the standee at the video library and stuff like that, and it looked scary as fuck. Like, it looked totally terrifying. And then if you hadn't seen it at the right age, then you're like, oh,
yeah,
it's a bit weird. Like, because it does play like those great kind of Disney movies, you know, with I guess they were kind of TV movies, but the
Wonderful World of Disney type of stuff.
Yeah, like the one with Mickey Rooney where they Bratz was one of them, and Little Spies, and The Leftovers.
Yeah,
like it plays like that, just with a horror twist.
Yep.
But this is an odd one. You know, she does kind of mention that she'd like it to see it remade.
Yeah,
and I just wonder, like, do kids have the same relationship with Dracula?
It's a good question.
And the Wolfman, and like certainly not even after Guillermo del Toro kind of brought it back, but certainly not with Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah,
you know, Wolfman, like those iconic Universal horror monsters are no longer.
Van Helsing certainly didn't do it for people.
Yeah, you know, a Wolfman with Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that wasn't a massive hit. I actually quite liked it. But,
yeah, it wasn't bad.
You know,
Well, anyway,
it's an interesting one. I don't know if they could pull it off. But if you were going to remake Monster Squad, and you had to pick 5 iconic
Universal monsters.
Well, not Universal monsters, just five 5 iconic figures in horror.
Okay. So
So would you? I mean, I think you'd probably now if it was Monster Squad and you brought back, and it wasn't based on comics, it was based on
Freddy,
Chucky, Jason, like those guys, and then you make friends with them and they help you solve crimes
that'd
or
be great.
whatever.
Yeah. There's that famous T-shirt that Fright Rags do with the Kill Destroyers on the front. Like that would be a great Monster Squad.
Yeah, that would be
Absolutely.
awesome. That would be a great way to modernize it if they're all made from.
Damn straight.
Is it
Instead of
is it all
Dracula,
new
you had
line?
Pinhead.
Yeah,
because he'd be the master of
yeah,
Oh,
the one controlling them all.
Once again, we're going to have to write this, Ben. We keep coming up with these ideas,
Yeah.
and we're not following through on them. Anyway, thank you, Chloe. Chloe is impressive. She's a mum of 3, and she has barely any time up her sleeve and still manages to pump that stuff out for us. But you can catch her on Wednesday night on our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram pages. Just look up Good Movie Monday. Her and myself just chat about stuff at 10:30. Laid back, chit chat.
I'm already in bed by then.
You can watch the reruns, mate.
Yeah. Can't catch it live. You asked me to be on the show once, and geez, did I struggle to keep those eyelids open?
Yeah, that's
It was
right.
it's like I'm usually a good 3 hours in bed by now.
So I'm currently reading something new. I'm trying something new. I'm reading a book in Braille. It's a horror, and I haven't finished it yet, but something bad is coming. I can feel it. All right,
I mean, they're getting better.
So
it's not saying much, but they're getting better.
So back in 1963, Mario Bava made a great anthology film called The Black Sabbath. And I made the mistake when I bought this one because I thought I was buying Black Sunday, which is another movie he did with Barbara Steele, which I was really dying to see. And I accidentally bought this one instead. But it turned out to be cool anyway. It's got Boris Karloff as sort of a master of ceremonies. And it's got some cool segments, especially The Drop of Water. It's just a recommendation. It's not something I'm going to stop and talk about. But Troma did a good one called Chiller in the 90s.
I've never seen. I didn't know Troma did one.
Yeah, and it's really good. It's one. It's one they definitely branded Troma, but I'm pretty sure it was an outhouse one. It's one that they sort of acquired. Dead Time Stories, Theatre Bazaar. That's a pretty good one.
I think that's David Gregory again.
Theatre Bazaar, and had Richard Stanley and a few others. That's a really, really edgy, hardcore one, which I liked a lot. A couple of years ago, they did one called Holidays, which is every segment is set on a different holiday.
Yep.
Kevin Smith is one of the directors on that. And then, of course, you had Nightmare Cinema, which is probably the most recent one, I think, other than the VHS movies and the...
Yeah, yeah. Well, the VHS, I think Nightmare Cinema was after. Like, there'd already been 3 VHS
Yeah,
ones.
but they're still making the
they're
VHS.
still, it's the latest franchise that won't die.
That's right. But the one I'm going to stop and focus on is probably my favourite anthology horror film of all time. It's From a Whisper to a Scream by legendary Jeff Burr. Directed in 1987. This was his second feature film, but a lot of his fans consider it his first film because that first one's pretty much impossible to come by.
Yeah.
Look, it's Vincent Price is he plays an old librarian who gives a local reporter played by Susan Tyrrell, who
from Angel.
From Angel from you can
With the
see her
potty mouth.
You can see her Norks in the Forbidden Zone if you're interested. He gives her a brief history of their town and its sinister past. And
Sorry, I just want to pause for a second because you're reintroducing the word Norks to the modern vernacular. It's been a while. Do you also get to see her Mut? You bringing that one back as well?
Norks is a little more tasteful.
Yeah, Mut's it's a horrible word.
God, well, you dragged us down there, so anyway.
I just think we need to deserve the R18 thing on iTunes.
Well, From a Whisper to a Scream is really grotesque and earns its R rating like a badge of honor. It's fantastic, and all the stories are good. Like, this is one that doesn't have a bad story as far as I'm concerned, but I want to just stop and talk about one in particular. It's called Stanley, and boy, is this full on. So, the actor Clu Gallagher?
I do indeed.
Right, fantastic.
Clu Gallagher.
Clu-Gallagher.
No, I don't have no idea. I've always said it was Clu Gallagher. Somebody corrected me once, and I'm like, I don't care what you say.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he plays one of these sort of Coke bottle glasses types of nerds, right? He's a loser. He's a mummy's boy. He lives with his sister, who he bathes naked, and it's really creepy. But he can never.
Is that creepy?
He can never score women, right? And there's one he's obsessed with. There's this one he's absolutely obsessed with, and one night she agrees to let him drive her home from like a dance or whatever. Right? So they're driving in the dark, and they pull up, and she's supposed to get out, and he leans over to kiss her, and she just rejects him point blank. I'm not interested. Thanks for the lift home. That's it. Then he tries to rape her. All right. She's definitely not having a bar of that, right? So she fights him.
Wait, so the rape didn't turn it around. She wasn't like, you know what? I wasn't into you before, but now.
Well, he kills her. Right. So he kills her in that moment.
Yep.
And then cut to a few nights later, he breaks into the mortuary and rapes her corpse. All right. So he has his way with her in a very tender, loving kind of moment. And then, you guessed it, cut to 9 months later, and you get baby zombie crawling out of the grave looking for daddy. And it's so good. And it's this animatronic baby, all half decomposed, looking for daddy. And the showdown.
Like the Baby in the Dawn of the Dead remake?
Kind of. Like the showdown between daddy and baby is just spectacular. And it is such a great moment in horror history.
You know, I had this idea once for a short film where it was a zombie film, but basically it was about this couple who are having sex in the back of a car, and they don't know that the zombie outbreak has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And just at the point of orgasm, a zombie busts into the car and bites the guy.
Yep.
So what he chucks up her is zombie sperm.
Yes.
And then it cuts to like 9 months later kind of thing. And, it's like the world is in disarray. And this woman is, she gives birth to the baby. But the baby, I don't know how I worked it out. But basically, the baby she doesn't give birth, the baby eats its way out through her stomach.
Awesome.
But by doing that, she becomes a zombie.
Yep.
And so she's still alive, so then she's just walking around
with a gaping hole
with this this gaping hole with the baby still like a kangaroo with a joey in the pouch.
That's fantastic.
And she is finding people to feed to the baby.
Yeah, it's great. That's great. It's great.
That was the
Oh, it's like one of those Russian dolls, isn't it? Like
yeah. You pull it. Yeah, exactly.
You could call it babushka.
Babushka. I'd have to get. I wonder if I can get Kate Bush to star in it.
From A Whisper to a Scream is just worth it. There's some other good stories in there. I'm not going to go into them, but there's one about sort of slave era black magic. There's a carnival freak show in there that's fantastic, and some homicidal children during the Civil War. Got to be seen to be believed. It's Jeff Burr at his best, who I think he's probably one of the more underrated B movie directors out there. I think he had the potential to be much bigger, and he just never was able to climb there. But what he made was
because of the man. Because of the man, Glenn.
What he made was great. Like, the movies he did make were good. But yeah, this is definitely his best. And apparently, the way they got Vincent Price was they idolized him. They wrote this script and they knocked on his door one night with a bottle of wine, knowing that he was obsessed with wine. He just let them in, read the script, said he'll do it. But then years later, the story goes that he regretted it. And apparently, like somewhere like on his deathbed or something,
that's the one he mentioned.
He tells somebody, I don't know who it was. You can look it up. It tells you who the person was, but he told this other actor or maybe journalist. He says, my one regret was From a Whisper to a Scream, which blows my mind. I think it's because of how grotesque it became.
Well, he was from old school horror where nothing was that gross.
Yeah, well, if I haven't sold it for people, then I don't know. Have you got one more before we throw to Adam?
Yeah, look.
And if you've got any more, we'll talk about them because this is our last opportunity.
Well, no, look, this is pretty much my last one. And this, I do have, like Chloe, I have a bit of a controversial opinion about this film.
All right, lay it on me.
This is 1993's Body Bags. I don't think we could go an episode talking about anthology horror and not mention this one.
Can I say I'm not a fan?
Oh, really?
Not really. Don't hate it. Don't love it.
I love John Carpenter in it.
Yep, he's essentially a crypt keeper.
He's the crypt keeper, except this time he's the morgue attendant, or actually an inmate. Or
the mortician.
He's the mortician. Yeah. No, but is he the mortician or is he?
He's a corpse pretending to be the mortician.
Yeah, that's right. He is great. And the first segment, the gas station, love it.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
I just do not care for the other two.
No, the Stacey Keach one shits me.
I don't like the CGI. I don't even really like the idea. I like the cast. Like, it's Twiggy, David Warner, and with Debbie Harry as his nurse. Fantastic. Stacey Keach. I do like Stacey Keach, though it's just hard to... no offense to people out there with cleft palates, but Stacey Keach's hair lip has always, I just can't stop staring at.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
Even when he's like, was super young and was playing like the kind of the love interest hunk kind of character. Just look at like fucking.
But even like the Mark Hamill segment, like I appreciate the story. I don't like the execution.
Yeah, like I mean, and it is a very old, story. Like you always hear about that. I got the hand of a serial killer.
Yeah.
Now I've got the, and that kind of stuff.
Goes back to Frankenstein with the brains.
With the brains, yeah. I mean, look, I love Charles Napier.
Yeah.
Anything that Charles Napier in, I'm going to watch. But yeah, look, I just, I like the wraparound. I like the first story. I could take or leave
the thing with Body
second and
Bags is
third.
they were trying to create a new TV show like Tales from the Crypt, and this
Yeah.
was the pilot essentially, and it just
Yeah.
didn't get picked up, so they fashioned it into a movie. Like I think they just polished it up a little bit around the edges.
Yeah.
And I mean that would have been interesting if it did land a series, and would John Carpenter have been
Carpenter
committed?
have done it?
Yeah.
Because he's having so much fun.
It kind of would have been like Alfred Hitchcock Presents,
Yeah.
and he would have embraced it. I would imagine. Like I said, I like the concept of this film. I love the title. I love the poster. I love
Yeah.
John Carpenter. So there's plenty of stuff for me to sink my teeth into. But the stories, those second two, just don't do it for me. And the first one I like because I love an axe murder. Like any kind of gruesome axe murder story.
It's so good, but it just the twist.
Yeah.
And the whole setup of it was really good, and Wes Craven popping up, and all that kind of stuff. It is just a really. Like if it had just ended there, if it was just a short, like a long short,
Mhm.
where it was just the Crypt Keeper, if that was the episode of the show, I would have been hooked. Like there could be like 12 episodes of shit after that, and I would have stuck around for the next 12.
Yep.
Because of the strength of that first one.
Oh well. Let's hand the ball over to our favourite serial killer, Adam.
Hey guys, it's Adam here from Adam's Just Seen and Triple M with another Good Movie Monday recommendation. This week we are doing Halloween films. Now for me, that conjures up some ideas of fun. Horror is a very robust genre. When I used to work at the video store, I'd be like, okay, come with me, come into this section. What is going to scare the pants off you? I loved giving scary movies to people. Now, when I think of Halloween, I think that the movie has to be equally scary and equally fun. Horror has changed over the last couple of years. A24 has brought out this new brand of horror, which, it's always kind of existed, elevated genre. Look, I love it. I cannot get enough of it, but they're movies that scar, they disturb, they're thematically rich, there's symbolism, they're nasty. That's not what you want on Halloween. On Halloween, you want to shit your pants, you want to jump, you want to kind of giggle, like you want that horror thing, right? And I explained this to someone once. They go, why are horror movies? Why do you like it? And I go, it's kind of like sex. I said, there's all this foreplay, there's all this tension, and then you get this release. And you go, oh, like this, and you go home giddy on the experience. So what movie is going to give you that experience? I think that Lights Out, a film released in 2016, is going to give you a lot of bang for your buck. This stars Teresa Palmer as a girl who is unfortunately dealing with a family curse, and that family curse is an entity known as Diana. Now, in kind of the horror canon, what makes Diana so terrifying and so special is Diana can only exist in the dark. So this is directed by David F. Sandberg, and this is based on a short that he did. And you might have seen the short, and a woman has got a lamp, and she turns it on, and there's nothing. She turns it off, and there's something. She turns it on, and there's something, and it's closer. And it keeps going like this to you, and it scares the shit out of you. So he takes that concept of effectively you're only safe in the light, and he turns it into this feature. But that general concept gives him so much room to make some horror set pieces that are just straight up terrifying. So, Teresa Palmer here is really effective as Rebecca, as this character, who is just, constantly in some form of peril. She's got her younger half-brother here, Martin, played by Gabrielle Bateman, and together, they're a good pair up against this malevolent force. But I just think that Sandberg was a director. Like, the minute I saw this, I'm like, this guy's on my radar. I got to watch this. And he ended up giving us Shazam, which I think is kind of pound for pound the best DC movie too as well. So if you're after some good scares this Halloween, check out Lights Out. It comes highly recommended from me.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Glenn.
Why did the ghost cross the road?
To get to the other side?
Correct.
It's like we planned that one.
But why was he arrested?
Don't know.
possession.
It's 9/10 of the law.
That's probably a good place to end the show. Yeah.
Please, please.
So that whole interview with John Kassir that we played before was recorded on video. So there's so much more to that if you watch it, because that guy is animated and then some. So yeah, go and check it out. It drops tomorrow night on our social media pages, YouTube, Instagram, and what's the other one? Facebook. That's it. And Ben, of course, you're going to be back on Thursday night with Sam and myself for another Halloween-themed Lucky Dip video.
Lovely.
Keep going.
No, that was just singing the word. There's no more lyrics.
Okay, that's a first.
Yeah.
Of course, the other voices you heard on today's show belong to Jarrett Garn, Guillermo Troncoso, Chloe Ritchie, Adam Ross, Joe Lewis, Chad Jennings, and James Thomas. Huge round of thanks to all of them. Almost didn't get that out. Shout out to Tia also. She's doing a great job to help us behind the scenes. We are very grateful. And folks, don't forget to visit Monsterfest's website to check out the new program and purchase your tickets. Ben, is there like any chance of a Hobo Santa Gobby this year?
There's always a chance of a Hobo Santa Gobby. Just maybe a different Santa.
Okay, well, thank you for the Gobby today. I appreciate it. That's an awful way to lead into my thanks to John Kassir. Thank you, mate. Once again, apologies. I hope you enjoyed the show. One of my favourite guests ever, without a doubt. And I got a kick out of it, and that's all that matters. We're going to leave you with a song just to piss Chloe off. This one's from Who Be Halloween, and it is Happy Happy Halloween by D-Bone and the Remains. What a great name. Catch you next week. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
There's a killer walking down the street, a funky zombie that doesn't speak, a broken bride with blood in her hair, but nobody cares, nobody cares. The boogeyman has bugs in his teeth, a pirate pulls a sword from its sheath. Frankenstein is out of his mind, and all I want to do is trick or treat. Happy Halloween, 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 happy Halloween. Trick or treat, every one of us. Trick or treat, sing the song with us. Trick or treat, every one of us. There's a goblin's house on the corner. I can feel the fear getting warm. As I knock upon the door, I fall through the floor. My eyes bulge out in horror. Through the darkness I can see a ghoulish thing, the likes of which no mortal's ever seen. He gets closer and closer. I say no sir, no sir. Then he whispers, Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween, 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 happy every one of us. Happy Halloween, happy sing the song with us. Happy Halloween, happy every one of us. Happy Halloween, happy Halloween. Trick or treat, every one of us. Trick or treat, sing the song with us. Trick or treat, every one of us. Trick or treat.